Welcome to Mikon's Hardware. In this video, I'm going to tell you about Chinese Mini ITX motherboard for the Intel Jginyue platform. In this case, this is Jginyue H610i-Gaming motherboard. The motherboard looks like this, and if you're in a hurry and don't want to watch the whole video, I'm gonna tell you that the motherboard is okay. You can buy it if the price is right and you like how the motherboard looks. But as usual, I have done my detailed testing, and here I have my printout with the most important points about this motherboard, so let's go through it. First of all, let's talk about the BIOS. In my case, the motherboard came to me with a rather old BIOS version A07. This BIOS is horrible, it does not have graphical UI, and with this BIOS, the motherboard will refuse to start up if I try to apply XMP profile settings for my memory. Luckily, we have an updated version. In my case, the latest one is A09. This one has graphical UI and it has fixed the issues with the XMP profile and some other issues that I was able to spot. Unfortunately, it is not possible to download the BIOS from the official Jginyue website. They have got some sort of an internal fight and the website was DDoSed, so they just shut down all possibilities to download files from their website from abroad. But I have got the BIOS from the AliExpress seller. There are actually two versions of the BIOS. One is for the retail chips and the other one is for the engineering samples. I do not have any engineering samples for J1700 platform to test, thus this BIOS version is untested, but I'm going to upload both of the BIOS to my Microsoft OneDrive account, and there you will be also able to get FPT program which works under Windows and under DOS and under UEFI shell to update the BIOS. Of course, there will also be a script which you can run under the Windows to update your Jginyue H610i motherboard's BIOS. Now let's talk about pros and cons of a Jginyue H610i motherboard. From the pros, we basically don't have any major pluses. The motherboard works, it's Mini ITX, and if you can find it for a reasonable price, then why not? From the cons, we have a few significant ones, but how significant you will decide it yourself. The first problem is the VRAM. The VRAM is totally fine for something like Core i5-12400, and I didn't have any issues with this CPU. But the VRAM is not enough for Intel Core i7-12700k. This CPU using this H610i motherboard under stress test goes into the Intel feature or Intel bug mode called clock stretching. In short, clock stretching is when the CPU does not have enough voltage or does not have enough electrical current. It goes into some sort of a safe mode where the CPU reports that everything is working as it should, and if you use any monitoring software, you will see that the CPU is working at the desired clock frequency, it is not overheating, it consuming enough power, and everything is on the level, but your benchmark scores will be significantly lower. There is a dedicated video about this phenomena from actually hardcore overclocking, and I will add a link into the video description. But in short, testing Cinebench R23 with this H610i motherboard, my i7 scored only 16,000 points. On a normal motherboard, the i7 would score somewhere around 22,000 points, so you can see the gap is significant. And of course, I have tried all possible settings inside the BIOS to remove all the limits. Intel XTU also reports that there are no limits and the CPU is running as it should run, but the scores are still very bad. In this case, I can only assume that there is a local hardware limit of how much power my i7 can pull from this motherboard. It's a good safety feature because the VRAM does not overheat and there is no risk to get it burned, but the VRAM is obviously not enough for i7. With i5-12400, it works just fine. The next big disappointment is that the motherboard comes without a Wi-Fi adapter. For some reason, I believe that it comes with a Wi-Fi adapter, but it is not. And of course, you can install your own Wi-Fi adapter, but you need to buy adapter and you need to buy antenna. And in this case, the price of Jginyue H610i of about 100–120 euros makes even less sense. The motherboard also does not support Intel CNVI M.2 Wi-Fi adapters, but in the video description I will provide some info about the adapter that actually worked on this motherboard with both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth enabled. A few extra things to point out is that the M.2 slot for the SSDs is PCI Express 3.0 and it is connected to the chipset. I would hope to have PCI Express 4.0 connected to the CPU, but we have what we have. Smart Fan function is also working only with the PWM 4-pin fans. If you connect 3-pin fans, which are supposed to be voltage regulated, those fans would be working at 100% speed. And one more issue that I found is that when I apply XMP profile with my memory, for some reason it is setting CL17 instead of CL14. If I manually go into the memory settings and set it CL14, it works, but by default, enabling XMP profile, it sets it CL17 and I can't understand why. One more important thing I forgot to mention is that the motherboard comes without the battery, just like any other motherboard from AliExpress. But Jginyue H610i does not have a battery socket on the motherboard, so Chinese just cut off the battery from the wires. The battery is supposed to be glued over here, but it came with no battery and no possibility to attach the battery. So I had to buy this special battery holder and just connect the wires, and then it goes to the motherboard. You would have to figure out some similar solution like this. And finally, what I can say about this Jginyue H610i-Gaming motherboard. The motherboard is okay, and if you already have it or you want to buy it, don't feel too sad. The big problem is the price. I believe that it has too many shortcomings to justify the price of 100–120 euros. If the motherboard would cost somewhere about 80 euros, it would be an attractive option. But because the motherboard does not support PCI Express 4.0 SSDs, it comes without battery and it comes without Wi-Fi, I believe it's a much better option to buy a cheap version from ASRock for about 150 euros. That would come without all of these issues, and it would also have official support with the proper BIOS updates, unlike the Jginyue motherboard. This particular motherboard will go into my personal mini ITX gaming computer. I'm going to use i5-12400F and NVIDIA RTX 3060. But that's pretty much all I can tell about Jginyue H610i motherboard. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, I hope it was interesting and educational. Bye for now.